Hey, what's up you guys? It's Zach with PCBros coming in with another PC build. Today we are going to be venturing just a little bit away from the budget end and going a little bit higher to get around $1,000 mid-range build here in 2025. In a second, I'm gonna break down all the specs as well as give you some benchmarks here at the end, so stay tuned for that. Yeah, let's get right into it.
Let's go over those specs. So starting off with the CPU, we have the Intel i5-14400F with 10 cores and 16 threads. This thing is pretty sweet and still pretty affordable today, making this a nice mid-range build. We'll get plenty of the power we need for a lot of these modern games that I'm going to show you later in the benchmarks. And for the GPU, we are rocking the ASRock RX 7600 with 8 GB of GDDR6 RAM. We went with the white here. We're trying to go with an all-white aesthetic build. We don't do too many of those on this channel, so it's cool to change it up a little bit, and this card looks clean and is really powerful for about $300-ish. And for the motherboard, we are rocking the ASRock B760M Steel Legend with Wi-Fi built in. This is a strong motherboard with everything we need for this build. We have ultra fast M.2 ports here, and we have plenty of room for upgrades in the future too, supporting that DDR5 RAM that I'm going to show you next. The RAM we chose is the Team Group 32 gigs of DDR5, 6000 megahertz RAM. We have 2 sticks here. For this 32 kit, we spent about $90, and I wouldn't recommend going any lower for this build. For the storage on this build, we are going 1 terabyte Gen 4 NVMe. I wouldn't recommend any lower, especially with all the modern games that we're playing are going to take quite a bit of that, and you can go more if you want. This is one of those parts of the build that it's really up to you. This is not where I would really make a budget cut if needed. 1 terabyte is a good place to start, and it doesn't really matter the brand you have. Just make sure that you get the generation that will support the fastest port on your motherboard. To cool the CPU, we chose another tower cooler. This is the white ID Cooling SE214XT. Now we choose tower coolers a lot for our builds because they are super affordable, this coming in at about $20, and they're super easy to build. So if you are new to PC building, you don't have to mess with AIOs, which are just a little bit harder, and this offers a stronger cooling solution than just going with the stock Intel cooler. And to power this build, we chose the Apevia white 600 watt 80 plus gold. This is not a modular power supply, so we have all the cables in the back. We are going to have enough room with our case here. And for the case, we chose the Okinos Aqua 3, one of our favorite cases for builds like this. This is the white aesthetic with the tempered glass, so this looks really good, and all together I think this build is going to turn out great. So let's get to building. Now for the benchmark section, we're going to benchmark 3 games here, starting in 1080p and then trying out the games with the same settings in 1440p to show you the difference between the two performances. So we're starting off with Black Myth Wukong, a game that we love to test because of its new graphically demanding benchmark that you can get for free on the Steam store. We have medium settings for this game on 1080p, and it is running pretty dang smoothly. That 32 gigs of RAM is really doing some work here. And you can see we definitely have some room to tweak settings. This is not super high refresh rate, but it is a super enjoyable experience overall. But this PC can really do some wonders in 1440p, which I'll show you here in a second. Black Myth Wukong is one of those more graphically demanding single player games that you can sit back and enjoy. So let's take a look at how this game differs when you crank it up to 1440p, but keeping that medium settings. So there isn't much of a drop at all. I would recommend for single player games like this, or if you built this system yourself, you also invest in a 1440p monitor, one that can switch between 1440p and 1080, which most can. That way you can tweak the settings a little bit and see which games you like to play in 1440p, or if you're playing a more competitive and want higher FPS, you can go to 1080p. In Black Myth Wukong, medium settings 1440p is still an enjoyable experience. We're rocking well above 60 here, getting about 80, and with no issues. I mean, as expected for this build. So let's move on to a FPS game and show you more of what this system can do. So here's the Call of Duty auto benchmarks, Call of Duty Black Ops 6. This is 1080p balance settings. Now keep in mind, Call of Duty benchmarks are gonna have slightly different performance than if you were playing Warzone or Zombies because of the amount of things on the screen, maybe loading the map. So use these as just a generalization of how the Call of Duty engine will run with this PC. I like these benchmarks because they are quick and effective and consistent when benchmarking a PC, especially when we're doing it in 2 different resolutions with the same settings. Let's move on to 1440p. Now with 1440p, Call of Duty is pretty dang demanding, dipping lower than we did in 1080p obviously, but I think this is still an enjoyable experience. I recommend balance settings for this PC when playing Call of Duty. That's where it still looks great, but you're not overdoing it. You can mess with the settings even more, but that's when Call of Duty starts to look a little gross. I think balance is great for this PC, but if you want, you can even go higher settings 1080p if you want the game to look a little bit better, but I think 1440p balance is looking pretty solid. So let's go ahead and move on to our final game here. This is Cyberpunk 2077 on medium settings 1080p. This game we have been benchmarking for quite a while now because of how good it tests that GPU. This is a very graphically demanding game. Medium settings, having no issue. For this PC, pretty much medium settings and balance is going to be your best bet if you want performance and looks balanced. But in 1080p, you can really still crank up the settings if you want. Now in 1440p, it's slightly different story. Medium is probably where you want to be, but you tell me, which one do you like to game better in on a PC like this? 1080p, 1440p? I mean, games will vary. These 3 games I've tested are, keep in mind, very demanding. So if you play Valorant or something like competitive that isn't quite as demanding, you can definitely just crank up the settings. This PC can handle it. But I like to test the games that are way more demanding to show you and push this system to the max and show you what this thing can do. And there you have it. This combo, the Intel i5-14400F with the RX 7600, is a powerful yet affordable PC that you can still build in 2025 and hit that 1440p sweet graphics. So let me know in the comments, is this a PC that you would build? Do you like the all white aesthetic? Also, let me know what PC you want to see next in the comments below and I'll try to build it. I have some other cool budget PCs coming up soon, so stay tuned for that. Make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss any cool builds that I'm doing in the future, and I'll see you all in the next one.